Welcome to Open School of Business. Today, I have a pleasure to introduce you to Howard Hughes, my longtime mentor. We worked together. He was such a great colleague and a boss, and a lot of things that I know about project management, frankly, came from Howard. So today, I'm very happy to see his career in corporate for 20 years has transitioned into his own business in farming, and he's been doing that for 10 years. So today he will tell us all about it, how he transitioned and how he's growing this new business. Hi, Howard. Welcome.
Hi, Anna. Thank you very much. It's lovely to see you again after all these years. So it's a very kind welcome. Very nice to think that I've had some impact on people in my lifetime pre-farming. So I really appreciate that introduction.
Yes, I mean, of course, because I can see from your profile, like even before I met you, you've had so many different experiences and degrees in everything from IT to marketing to project management, business and communications. Therefore, I'm not surprised that you're leading a very successful business today. But I know that starting a business is always very difficult. So my first question would be like, okay, what was the challenge when you started something completely new?
Well, a great many years ago, there was a risk of me becoming an eternal student, which is why I do have a few degrees and masters and such like. But what I did was, many years ago, I always wanted a job that was outside. Farming was always my passion. Working with the land was always my passion. But getting into farming from scratch is very, very, very difficult. The finances are prohibitive, the knowledge, the introductions, everything is prohibitive. So I decided at a relatively young age I needed to go out and get what I considered to, or what I call, a real job. So I went into project management, IT, worked in finance, but I was generally fixing other people's problems, hence a project manager. I know that within myself, I like short-term assignments. So a project, for example, has a start and a finish and a middle, and you know where you are. And that suits my personality down to the ground. Being a long-term career person and just being within the confines of an organization and just staying at the same job would never, ever going to suit me. So I like the change. And eventually I found this job called a project manager, and I could stay within an organization, get some consistency, but change essentially my job or what I was doing quite frequently. And that's why I ended up being quite good at project management, which is where we met. But the reason I went into a career initially was to earn the money and get the experience to then go back into farming, which was my first love. My father was in horticulture. When I was at university, I would work on hop farms, fruit farms, vegetable farms, all around the southeast of the UK, which is where I'm from. And my thought was to earn enough money to one day be able to afford a farm of my own. With that, my salary went sort of like that. Land prices went like that. And so my expectation of my big farm had to come down a bit. And obviously, the older you get, you think, am I still got the energy to work on a farm? And in my 40s, the urge to get out of a corporate environment was growing and growing. I remember the birth of my daughter and the birth of my son, and I hate to say it, I was tied to my mobile phone for much of that period of time. And I remember getting a telephone call because I'd forgotten to turn my work phone off during the birth of my son. And I thought, this is it. I am now doing the wrong thing. I've lost my desire and passion for this particular career. We need to have a family. So soon after the birth of my son, and I kept missing my daughter, I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'd travel to work. I'd go to 6 countries a week, fly back again. And, you know, I was absent, essentially absent. And I didn't want to be that sort of father. Yes, I was earning money, which is a good thing, but it's not everything. So we started hunting for a farm. And we were driving down to a friend's christening in the southwest of the UK. And whilst we were driving, my wife and I were driving, we had some sort of laptop or something, and we had linked in with our phones, and we were looking at properties. And we had been looking at properties back in Australia, which is where we lived for a little while. We were looking at properties in Italy and in France. But because of our parents, both in the UK, we decided to have a look in the southwest, and this one popped up, this one that I'm in now. And I thought to myself, why have we been looking at holiday accommodation? This, where we were going to buy a holiday place, and then I would do some small holding within the holiday place, and a bit of coaching, and a bit of this, and a bit of that. And I decided that I'd just end up being a maintenance man rather than having any real purpose. This place came up. This place has a cider orchard and grows trees. This place here, driving past it, apples. I used to grow apples when I was in Kent. I know how to do that. This has got a cider orchard. Out of that window there, my view these days is of an orchard. Out of that window there, my view is south across rolling hills. Anyway, and then it's apples. It's also trees. I've been managing woodland for years and years and years. It's never anything that's really sort of popped up in conversation at work, places that we work together and such like. But I've had woodland for years. My father had woodland, and it just sort of came together. So we started talking to the owners of this place and all the agents and everything. It took 2 years. 2 years from the moment we saw this to the moment where the accountants, the banks, the owner and myself have finally gone through all the hoops, because we bought a business. So it's not just a matter of buying land and a house. We've actually bought a fully fledged business. I must confess that it started going downhill. It had been doing very well in the late 90s, early 2000s. By the time we saw it, we were at the tail end of the credit crunch, and it hadn't evolved. Its website, for instance, was a single page document, like a menu, where you could identify what you wanted to buy, then phone up or write in, and anyway. So
Yeah.
we've taken that core business, very good reputation, good name, and we've built on it. We still do trees. That's our main business, growing and selling trees. So it's all about provenance these days, and native selections and such like, which is absolutely phenomenal. We also grow trees for biomass, and we're one of the only suppliers in the country that do it. And we supply trees throughout the United Kingdom and into Europe as well. Obviously, since Brexit, that's become more difficult. But given the right size order and the right clients, we still do it. But there's a lot of paperwork. But more importantly, I can take my children to school, and I'm here when they come home. And that's the most important thing. I mean, what's the point doing anything if you're not going to be present for your family? So when we started this chat, my wife went off to go and get my children, which I would normally do, and they'll come back at some point and probably come running in here, unless I manage to keep them away for a few minutes more. But
I think that's a dream for a lot of people who are tied to the computer and they are not able to go anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great fan of sitting still in front of a computer anymore. My sort of mindset's changed a little bit. I love being outside on the land. I love just being in and around my family. I hate to admit it, but I think I was a stranger to them when they were really little. But now my youngest daughter comes running to me. I mean, she's only 8 years old, and it used to be everybody would just go to mummy. And when the other two were little, they would just go to mummy because I was away most of the time. But Imogen, my youngest, she will come to me as often as she will go to mummy. So, which is absolutely lovely. They all hold my hand. We'll have a kiss goodbye when I drop them at school. We'll have a kiss hello when they come back. And that's worth so much more than flogging your guts out to be chasing a phenomenal salary. And don't get me wrong, I do miss having a regular check every month coming in and thinking, that's no problem. But now I'm in control of my own destiny. I would never, some of the things I do now, I would never, ever have been able to do when I worked in a big corporate. I am, he says, it makes me sound so middle-aged, I'm a parish councillor. I'm on our parish council. I try to do things in the community. I try to bring together the community and give us a cohesive set of parishioners. We do things for each other. We also try to do things outside of our community. Also, I'm part of a climate change group within that parish council, and we do wildflowers and we do things for children and we do all sorts of things just to try to make our environment better. I am Scout leader, so I've joined the Scouts.
Cool.
This is Lister, this is Beavers. This is the entry level to Scouts that a lot of people think, oh no, I can't deal with lots of screaming children. These are just under 6 through to about 8 years old. Love it, absolutely love it. All my children have gone through that. I think I'm now the only Scout leader that doesn't actually have any children in the bit that I look after, but I intend to stay there and carry on doing it. And it's phenomenal. You asked earlier on about how do you start up. As I said, we bought a business and have grown on that. In this environment, in today's world, you cannot stay still. You have to keep growing. You have to keep developing. You have to keep changing. And this is what I was saying earlier on about years ago. You'd earn money dependent upon your physical prowess. 200 years ago. Then we had industrial revolution and then computer revolution, and it was you got a lot of intellectual prowess. But these days it's also about adaptability and your uniqueness. So we couldn't just stay still as a tree nursery growing some cider apples. You won't be able to see it on the board there, but on there we've got changing the business into cider, into juice, into apple related products, using the orchard as a fancy venue for camping and events. Also, I like talking to young people and to people about their businesses and to life change people. And so I do a lot of walking and talking and coaching in the orchard. I'm very, very, very lucky to have that space. And when you're walking with everything around you, your subconscious is kind of freed and you can work out what you want. And the amount of people that come here, campers or people that want coaching, and we just go for a walk. And if we're not walking here, we've got some beautiful, beautiful common land a mile away up the road, and we'll walk down there and we'll walk across there, and you can walk through a wood and then in front of you see the sea. It's absolutely lovely. So as I say, I've changed in that I think some of my harder edges from a corporate world have been softened, and just getting to know something to do with coaching, something to do with mentoring, something to do with psychology. Years ago, I studied psychology as part of a degree, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. Now it makes sense, and this is phenomenal. After, I can't remember how long ago I did the degree, 30 years ago, it now makes sense. Unbelievable. But what I often say to people is my epitaph on my headstone, right? So when I'm gone, I don't want it to say Howard Hughes, brilliant businessman. I want it to say Howard Hughes, great father, great husband, those things. Business, it's about the family.
Yeah. I can see that you're living your life fully, authentically. But when you said that it took 2 years to complete the transaction, I was like, oh my God, I need to know all about those 2 years, how it worked out, what was necessary. I think that's everybody knows, like, okay, I can go and buy, but then it's not just buying. So if you tell us about how it actually works and what are the things to do, that would be awesome.
That was a stressful 2 years. So obviously I was still in the corporate world, and at best working a 14-hour day, at worst working more. When you decide to buy a business, you have to do a lot of due diligence, and we had to get consultants in to value the business, to everything from making sure the buildings weren't going to fall down, to working out the value of goodwill, the brand name, how much was it worth, the stock that was in the nursery fields, how do you value that? And then I'm quite good with accounts and understanding figures and things like that, but there's some terminology I just did not understand whatsoever. And so we had to get an accountant on board, who then liaised with the banks. So we bought this mainly with money that I had earned, but we also decided to take out a commercial loan so that we still had enough for operating capital. So you have to be realistic about these things. But in order to get a commercial loan from a bank, their due diligence was off the scale. And as I say, there was terminology in there I had never even heard of before, so we had to employ somebody else. And she was or is the director of a very large accountancy firm around here. And even she was bemused by some of it. And then, of course, the legal sides of it as well. You're buying farmland, but you're also buying reputation. So you're buying bricks and mortar, you're buying all the dirt and the grass and the trees and everything, but you're buying the reputation, you're buying a lot of intangible things, again, which then need to be locked in. And my mindset was about trying to be quite specific about things, but my legal advice was leave it all open, and then we've got something to argue about in the future. And my one piece of advice to anybody that's going to do this in the future is do not listen to that bit of nonsense. Be absolutely specific about it. If you're buying a tractor, make sure it's that tractor. Note the hours, note the miles, note the variety and everything about it. Just be absolutely specific about it. The only reason to leave things open-ended and vague is so that the lawyers can come back and charge you more money arguing about what may or may not have existed. So you can waste an awful lot of money. So people embarking on a lifestyle change, they may have worked in business for 20 or 30 years. They may have a lot of savings behind them. They will race through those savings very, very quickly, thinking that they know a lot of stuff because they've been in business. And I'm referring to myself here, obviously. And you'll waste a lot of money. You'll waste an awful lot of money because people will see a lot of areas where they can gain from you. So lawyers and accountants and insurance people and surveyors, etc. And you have to be really careful with where you're spending money. It's very easy to burn through it very, very, very quickly. And ultimately, that will affect how much cash flow you have within your business. That'll affect how well you can run your business. And once you've stepped out of the corporate arena, everything here that you can see around here needs to be either saving money or generating income. So again, using some of my old corporate hat, it's all about productivity or growth. So up on that board there, that's all about the different projects and where they are within the stage. That's a Kanban board, and it's all productivity and growth. Mm-hmm. The board behind me is all about operations. So whilst I left my suit and my tie and my passport, behind some desk somewhere in London or Moscow or Sydney, all of this knowledge is absolutely relevant. What you do find is when you move into a small community, especially say in the southwest, is that people will look at you with suspicion, think that you've come from London. Everybody that moves here in their eyes comes from up country, from London, and they're all loaded and they're taking away jobs and such like from locals. So you have to become invested in the community. It's the only way to survive, and you have to be open and honest. You cannot, and God forbid I ever was, because I came from a small community originally, so I kind of understood some of this. You cannot go in and go, I used to be a general manager at such and such a large company, and I know everything, and you're all peasants. You must not do something like that. just because you were very good in marketing in London or Sydney or Moscow or Washington or wherever, does not mean that you know marketing in a small rural environment where people don't have 10, 100 or £1,000,000 to spend. They might have £100 to spend, and your budgets are small, and you're dealing with people's lives. If you're dealing with other small businesses and such like, you're dealing with actual lives. They're trying to save money. They're trying to make money directly for their families. It's not like having a sickie in a big office, and it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You're dealing with real people with authentic lives trying to make their own living. So you have to be honest. And when pushed for, say, margins and such like, I know what I can afford to go down to. Yeah. And other people will have a sheet like this for various items. And you might think, oh, I can get that cheaper on Amazon, or I can get this, I can get that. And yet, why aren't they moving? And it's because, as a small business, you don't have the buying power. What you're doing is you're buying the knowledge. So something might cost, rather than 10 pence, it might cost 12 pence, but you're getting exactly the right product, and you're getting all that knowledge, and you're getting a bigger network from it. So there are a lot of other things about it than just the pure financial, which is what we would have been taught in our previous career. In our previous career, one of my pet hates was the mantra was, I was told this directly, was a win-lose. And if you lost, my win was greater. And that never sat right with me. I always like a win-win. And I know that if I can do good business for somebody that I still make a margin on, and they get at a good price, they will be coming back, and we have both won. And that is the way to survive in your own business, and to make your business successful. Obviously, as I say, we've got other ways of building our business with diversification of the cider orchard into juice and cider itself. That little sign there, that's our planning permission and acceptance into, you need planning permission to have camping. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we have 10 pitches, 3 smart cabins, and we're hopefully going to get another smart cabin sorted out. And that's less of a physical income stream. So I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to be lifting dirty, great big trees for the rest of my life. This will be an income stream where I'm still meeting people, still talking, but I'm not physically exhausted by the end of the day. I might be mentally exhausted. And a lot of those people on this one here, they're coming for coaching, lifestyle, how to run a rural business, that sort of thing. So it's all sort of knitting together a bit. Family, the different elements of the business, but you still have to keep a level head, and you still have to make a margin in order to pay for everything.
All right. Yes. This is amazing how many aspects you just touched on. And those are all the questions I was going to ask you anyways.
Sure.
Like, for example, fitting into a small neighborhood, a small community, that is completely different. How old were your children when you moved? Was it something they considered like, oh, this is different, and adapting?
Yes, my daughter, I think, was 3 when we moved. And the first thing she said when we opened the car door and got out of the car was, I don't like it, it smells. So we'd gone from Winchester in the UK, which is a very smart, well-to-do town. It considers itself to be a country town, but it is very smart. It's within commuter distance of London.
Yeah.
Very affluent, very smart. And it did smell that day. I remember that day. We're in the middle of nowhere. We have some neighbours not too far away down there, but they're, 5 houses in a little close. The farmers around here spread whatever on the land. It did smell that day, and she didn't like it because it smelled. My son was a little baby. He was probably about 18 months old. 21 months old. my youngest daughter, so my wife was pregnant. I bet you didn't
Oh,
know this. When we moved here, Fiona was pregnant. So we moved here in April. There was a delay on moving, which I'll tell you about in a sec. So, but Fiona gave birth to my youngest daughter in August. So for the first few months of this huge change, suddenly we've got no income coming in on a regular basis. We've got people phoning us up, and we have to answer questions about things. To be quite honest, about we were still learning, and she was pregnant.
wow,
Um, so
drastic.
yeah, Imogen was born in Exeter Hospital, which is about 15 miles away. She was probably the first child to be born in this hamlet that we're in, maybe 1,000 years or something ridiculous. And so yeah, we had a lot of life changes going on. 2 young children, a third born here, and so except for Maddie saying it smelt, the others don't really don't
Yeah.
recall anything else. I mean, they don't remember any of the visits we made back to. So I used to get home visits from work to Australia, and Maddie and Sebi don't remember those whatsoever. Imogen's never been to Australia. Yeah, they've grown up knowing this, and in the future, Maddie's now 13, so you know, in a few years' time, she'll be wanting to go out with her friends and whatnot. And we live in a rural place, so I know that I'm going to be running taxi journeys and all that sort of stuff. In order for them to go out and have any fun somewhere, our nearest pub is a mile away, but I don't think they'll want to go there necessarily. That's where that's where my friends go and such like. And it's a very smart French bistro type of pub run by a Frenchman, and it's a lovely, lovely, lovely pub. But it's not the place where if you're 18, 19 years old, you want to go and meet your friends. So I will
Right.
be daddy taxi. But yeah, it was quite interesting moving here, and the children were, as I say, young enough to now
Yeah.
they know no better. We've got 3 children, 3 separate schools.
Mm.
So if someone is ever thinking about moving to the countryside, my son's school is a mile and a quarter that way. My eldest daughter's school is about 4 miles that way, and my youngest daughter's school is about 3.5 miles that way. So the school run is a bit of a mission in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, so much so, I've started recording it on a dash cam, and I've now been putting it on things like Instagram and TikTok.
So, since you run this business as a family, do you have any other business partners? And if you do, how did you build those relationships and manage those?
So Fiona's my wife. She and I are so we have 2 businesses here. Lots of sort of we have Bowhayes Sanctuary, which is where the camping and where the coaching happens. Bowhayes Trees, obviously trees. We have a nursery and a coffee shop, and we have the cider. It's all owned by H&FU's partnership, and then we have Bowhayes Limited and the other bits on top of that. So Fiona and I, we're married, we live together, and we work together. Some people think we're absolutely nuts, and how can we do it? But strangely enough, we met at work back in, I think, the late 90s when we both worked for the Prudential. So we have worked together on and off since the late 90s. And she is, we kind of jokingly say she's in charge of everything inside. So marketing, finance, all that sort of stuff. And I'm in charge of everything outside. So planting and playing in tractors and things like that. The reality is we both look after everything. In terms of other business partners in our business, we don't have any other owners as such, but we do. So the lady that supplies us our coffee for the coffee shop, so we formed a relationship with her. She's wonderful. She roasts coffee 3 miles away. Both coffee. Her name is Lamise. She came from South Africa. We've met her son, we've met her mother, and she's lovely. We've offered her space here should she ever want to move her business here, and we work together with her to create a nice offering in terms of the coffee. She's trained us both to be baristas, something I never thought I'd be doing when I was, running £1 billion projects and all that sort of nonsense. We work together very closely with obviously landscapers. We have our preferred landscapers, and things like if I can't go and do someone's planting, then we give them the jobs and vice versa. So we sort of knit ourselves into the local community. Um, and and I don't know if you heard that in the background. It wasn't me. That was my dog. So my dog's just down here, and she's just yawned.
Oh,
Not very
nice.
appreciative, Pippi. But it's about finding the right people. And it's about what I was saying before. They're all small businesses.
Mhm.
And so they all need to make money. They all need to look after their families. But we find people, sounds a bit silly, find lovely people that we like doing business with. And hopefully they like us. And then I think between us, that bond is greater than just the two individuals. If Louise wanted a hand with anything, I would give her a hand, and so would Fiona, and vice versa. We had an opening event here to show off our new whatever it was, and Louise came down and did all the copies. And we would reciprocate in the same way. So as I say, we don't have any other ownership, but we have partners in terms of what we deliver.
All right, right. You're getting community members to help out and building a whole infrastructure around your business is really awesome. And also, since so far away from home, you're getting like relationships like you would have at home, like with your neighbors and just community members. So it's just wonderful. Um, and in terms of skill set, how does your wife's skill set vary from you? So where do you sort of like collide, and where do you have things that are complementing each other?
So that's a really interesting question. My wife, um, she was the data analytics person. Yeah, so whereas I might have always been, strategy, projects, that sort of thing, and making sure that things were traveling in the right direction, she's always a lot more detailed than me. Um, she's also worked in agency, so she did the analytics for marketing, and she's also had her own business as well. Prior to this, she had a lovely, lovely, lovely company called the Nice Company, and they did all the marketing. They selected beautiful things. So she's got a fantastic eye for detail. She has recently, with the help of the lady that looks after our marketing, redesigned all of our website and offering. And then between Fiona, myself, and Kerry's the lady that does our marketing, we then, if you like, delved back into our IT world and looked at the integration. We ended up with something like 6 or 7 different systems, all crossing over too much. So we're now bringing that back as well. So I think it all complements each other very well. We do find that there are some areas we might both be, say, if we've got a difficult HR conversation to have, neither of us like doing that. And that's where we will then sometimes have to find somebody to coach us to be brave enough to have those difficult conversations. And very often we'll try to do that together. And that's where we have a gap in our skill sets. And I think that if people are making a lifestyle change, you can't be everything. And you must realize that with your partner, you'll be overlapping in some areas, conflicting in others, super complementary in others, and have no visibility of other areas.
I mean, it sounds like you do have a good system working, and of course, having that understanding and support each other is very important and enjoyable to work. I'm sure, like, you're just living instead of working in that sense, because you have to interact with your wife, and it's always more pleasurable and than maybe some difficult clients or some compliance related agencies and stuff. So my other question is, when you bought the place, did you also did the place already have employees? Did you inherit some employees that you had to employ?
Yes, that was quite difficult. So we when we bought the business, there were quite a lot of people. So when we were looking around, there were quite a lot of people around, and we found that they were all subcontractors. There weren't any employees as such. And we were under the impression that they had all been told that we were buying this business and that their jobs were safe, and we'd like to meet them all and we'd all like to continue, and etc. etc. Reality was, we bought this place and wondered where everybody had gone. So we started phoning them up, and we found out that they hadn't been told that we were buying. They clearly thought that something was going up, and they thought that somebody might have just been buying this to be a family house or something like that. Not a single person knew that we needed them, not just wanted them, needed them to be here. I mean, we were entering a new business. We didn't know who anything was, We'd obviously organised with the previous owner for him to be, both him and his wife, to be around. I think it was for 3 months, but spread over the course of 6 months, something like that. But we needed the other people who had all the expertise of actually doing stuff as well. So we managed to get all of their details, phoned them all up, and invited them all in. And one of the oddest things was, we didn't have this office at the time. The office was in the house, but we invited them into the kitchen, into the farmhouse kitchen. One of them came through the door and said, "I've been here for 15 years. I've never been inside the house." And every single one of them didn't know whether or not they still had a job. Excuse me. They were so relieved when we said, "We need you." So we inherited a lot of people. We got them all in, and after 2 seasons, they were trying to modernize things, and you could see the change and the stress that it could cause people, because they'd done things for 15 years in a particular way. But the cost of labor is so expensive, and within our industry, what we were producing started to be produced elsewhere. So our uniqueness was being whittled away. And one item, for example, when we first got here, cost, say, £60 plus shipping. These days, it's more like £12 plus shipping. And so if you're spending, I don't know, £100 a day on producing £50 worth of goods, it's just not worth it. So at some point, we needed to have a really difficult conversation. These people had obviously trained us, kept us going and everything, but we needed to change the way that they work. Some of them were adaptable to that, some of them weren't. So we could feel one of these awkward conversations coming on. You could see it actually in the figures. You're paying, I don't know, £10,000 for some labour and producing about £2,000 worth of goods. And so Fiona and I were quite worried and quite adverse to having these difficult conversations with what we saw as our family, our extended family. So we got some coaching on that, and I came up with the idea of setting targets just to see how bad it really was. And so I'd asked them to produce, say, 100 of an item a day, and get, say, 25. And by the end of the week, we might have had 100 of these. And it was just not financially viable to employ all of these people. So I had to stop that line of business that we were in, which meant that essentially that stopped their jobs. But we continued trading. It was the only way to do it. You can't be a charity. So obviously we didn't just say switch off on a day. We sort of rolled it out a bit. And gave them the opportunity. But I was then told by somebody that one of the conversations when we weren't around was that it's really difficult to go slow. And you find out things like that, and we'd consider them to be family, and we were expecting that back, probably naively. And actually, they were plodding along on purpose and not going, you know, not going at a commercially viable pace. So it was the right thing to do to sort of end all of those roles and to cut that product line, but it was very difficult. So they kept us going for a couple of years, taught us a lot of stuff, showed us through which we could then see we had to change and had to become more competitive, find more productivity savings, and grow our product range.
Mm-hmm.
But they were the wrong people to take us beyond that point. They got us to that point and kind of forced a strategic decision, and it was very sad to say goodbye to them all. But unfortunately, it was necessary.
All right, of course. When you evolve, you want partners who are evolving with you. Altogether, now, how many people do you have?
I should really know this, shouldn't I? I think we've got 7 people now.
All right, awesome. I think it's really great that you don't have that many people, because when I see your website, 8. 8, yeah.
Sorry, you were saying about our website.
Yeah, because when I see and I love the branding and everything, your wife did a really great job with that. It just looks so great, and the variety of things you can buy from you, it just makes me feel like, oh, you must be having like 100 people working for you. And that means you're really efficient and productive, employing 8 people and having such a great selection of things, and diversified, and just all these different tree types. I learned a lot of things from your website just about what is available, and things. So I wonder what usually what kind of clients do come to you? Do they come physically, or do they just order and you ship it out? How does this whole thing work with the clients?
So yes to everything. So we have, when we first got here, the area about 100 and something meters down there was just our farmyard. I've smartened all that up, put in irrigation, borehole, lines of trees and whatnot, built a coffee shop and a deck. So now we have a fully fledged nursery, but we specialize in trees and shrubs. We don't have barbecues and chairs and mugs and all that sort of business. We are a specialist tree nursery. And I like to tell people that, if they look at my fingernails compared with somebody else in a different garden centre, they'll all have clean fingernails. Mine are always dirty because I have my hands in the mud. So we've built all of this, and so our clients will come in down there, and they'll come and see us down there. So we'll come and see them in person. I'll do design for them. I'll chat to them about plants in different places and all that sort of stuff. We also get a lot of telephone calls from all across the country, or we just get people that see us online, order online.
Yeah, I was wondering, what's the profile of the clients? Like, are they just people who want to have some trees in their backyard, or these are farms and they have specific reasons?
We will deal with county councils, wildlife trusts. If you wanted a tree and you came in, I'd make you a coffee, choose a tree with you, help you choose a tree. So it's everybody that wants a plant for their garden through to somebody that is trying to rewild a huge area. And so one person might buy a single tree, somebody else might buy tens of thousands of trees. So a sale might be £50, it might be £50,000. The way we generally, I need to differentiate sometimes. So I might spend 45 minutes or an hour talking to somebody about a tree that's worth £25. I might spend 45 minutes to an hour talking about somebody that might be rewilding 1,000 acres. One of them's going to give us quite a lot of margin. The other one might give us enough margin to pay for a coffee. But the way that we deal with people is generally consistent. So I think that both of those individuals, the one with the estate and the one with the garden, are both valuable individuals. one of them spending a lot of money now. The other one might tell all their neighbours. Yeah?
Right.
And we operate differently from a lot of other nurseries or garden centres. So if you came to me and you said, I want an oak tree, I might just ask you a couple of little questions about that. And what you generally find is that people don't really know what they want. They have an idea of what they want. So it's about finding the drivers and the objectives.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have an oak, they might want an oak tree, but their garden might only be, say, 5 meters square. And that oak tree is going to cause an awful lot of problems in years and years to come. So we approach it differently. We talk about the outcomes, we talk about the drivers, we talk about the rationale for things, and then we help somebody decide. If somebody's absolutely adamant they want an oak tree, I would still sell them an oak tree, but we generally try to give a bit of advice as well. Whereas a lot of other places, they don't operate like that. But I think that that's due to my corporate background, where you're generally trying to find out what sort of outcome is driving a project to make sure that you're delivering something that gives the required outcome. So I'm often having conversations like that.
Wow.
I think a lot of people are quite surprised that I won't be necessarily off the bat asking them about what sort of soil they have. I ask them about other things.
Right.
Dare I say, in this country, a lot of people, I'd say 60% of our sales are to hide someone else. So someone won't like a view. That's one of the strangest things. People they won't like a solar farm, so they'll plant a lot of trees, or they won't like their neighbour's windows, so they plant more trees. Sometimes I don't think the UK is a very gregarious place, but I can understand about having your own sense of privacy. I mean, we're all taught from a young age, being raised in the UK, that, quote, an Englishman's home is his castle. So you're trying to make it your little fortress. But I think sometimes it's quite nice just to see what's happening on the other side of the wall.
Well, you don't have those close windows in your area, so you might have forgotten how it is like to be staring to your neighbor's I don't know, bathroom window or something.
If people's lives are so boring that they find interest in just watching me brushing my teeth, then so be it.
Yeah, this is great. I've learned so much from you today about this business and in general the lifestyle change business, because it's just like a story from a there are a lot of especially Christmas time, some movies come out about corporate people going into the village and going back to the roots where the brand started or something. There are a couple of movies like that. I'll send you some links. But I think it's just amazing to see the story of real life and how you're dealing with it, how you went through that learning curve and completely adapted to that new environment for you. And you're bringing all those great innovations and insights from corporate to the community, to your business, but also not losing that authenticity, that connection, the ties. Actually, the whole reason why you moved, just so that you can be close to your family, very much involved with the community, and just living life authentically. It's just super, super amazing. And I'm so happy for you. I'd love to visit. I'm actually planning a trip to London in April, so maybe I'll drive a little bit. How far is it from London?
So to drive down from London would take you, it depends what part of London, but maybe 2.5 hours or so, maybe 3 hours.
Yeah.
No, definitely come. More, we'd love to have you here. So,
yeah. And I would love to also remind our audience that you do coaching online as well, so that, you don't really have to go fly to London and do 3 hours. If you need some kind of coaching in lifestyle change business in rural areas and farming, just shoot an email to Howard, and he's right there on Zoom. So I'm sure that you're gonna find a lot of benefit from that, because Howard has always been a great mentor.
Absolutely. Um, um, it is important to recognise, though, it isn't just me. So a large part of the driving force, at least half of the driving force, is my wife. Um, and she's, whilst I like chatting and going out and doing a bit of coaching, this and that and the other, she really is the brains. And if I've got a question or something that's not sitting right with me, I do two things. One is I always sleep on it, and secondly, I always ask Fiona, because she is my conscience. She is the one that will give me the alternative view, and she is the driving force. And whilst all of this sounds idyllic and lovely, it is blooming hard work, really hard work. But it's enjoyable, and it's my hard work, not someone else's. If that makes sense, I'm not just a slave to yet another project that I'll be revisiting in 5 years' time and changing yet again, for big corporate. It is really hard work, but it's lovely. But I do think that Fiona takes a lot of the credit